Hey guys.
Hello.
Nobody's gonna stop America.
Nope. Because we're having a good time. Having a good time. Well, it's World War I.
It's not a very good
It's not a good time.
But we stay out of it for a really long time because we're having a good
So
time.
we're having a good
back
time.
in America.
Yeah,
making
crushing
money.
it.
Bam, bam, bam.
No one else is having a good time.
No, but we'll help them out.
We'll help them out. All right. Let's go. You can't click with your mouse because this is my computer. All right. First things first. Got to talk about some diplomacies.
Yeah, so we go back to Roosevelt, Taft, and Wilson. And when you don't know Wilson yet.
You don't know him.
You just know he got elected in 1912. But we looked at domestically what they were doing, but now we need to look at foreign policy and see what they're doing. And lucky for us, they all got catchy little names for their policies.
Super easy to remember.
Yeah, so we start with Roosevelt, and it's called Big Stick.
Speak softly and carry a big stick. That's where that comes from.
What do you think that means, Ms. Knowles?
It means hush your mouth and attack people with a stick, right?
Yeah. I always think of it as TR is like, hey guys, I'm going to ask you nicely once. And you're going to do what I say, because if you don't, I'm going to come with a stick.
Come
and
at
get
you.
And that stick is
with
the
the stick.
military.
Right.
More particularly, it's the Great White Fleet.
Right.
Which we will get to.
Hold on that.
So Roosevelt's big thing is that, well, he looks like he's like taking care of the people and he's loving up and giving them cuddles or whatever. In America, he only cares about like who he deems superior. He is a super social Darwinist.
Just your average, everyday social Darwinist, white man's burden thing that we've been looking at for years at this point in time. So nothing new, nothing original.
And so he really,
Roosevelt.
we look at like, oh, he went into Panama and did his thing there, but it was just for the benefit of America. It wasn't for the Panamanians. It wasn't a humanitarian thing.
No.
Because he didn't care about the Panamanians.
He cared about that land.
He cared about the land and the value of it for shipping. Now, the countries he really likes, he likes Britain. He likes France. He likes Britain and France. He also likes Japan. He
does
sees
like
them as superior to everyone else.
He's got his eye on Japan.
So those are the groups that he's really going to work hard in establishing a really solid foreign policy. Everybody else is just like a product. He could care less.
Right.
Whatever happens to him.
Yes, exactly. So speaking of Japan, speaking of the Great White Fleet, protecting the open door in Asia. So we've had this open door policy, open door notes. We all have an interest in China, but we got to keep our options open. And so Japan actually gets into a war with Russia, the Russo-Japanese War, which Teddy Roosevelt wins a Nobel Peace Prize for ending that war, writing the treaty.
Which is, what?
Yeah, right?
All right.
We were not involved in this war.
No.
How we're going to be involved is economically, essentially.
Yeah.
But once we negotiate Japan out of that war, Japan now becomes a dominant naval power.
Yeah, recognized naval power by the United States in particular.
Yeah. More on that later.
So the Great White Fleet, my students, I know we were kind of waiting to talk about it, but you know that Teddy Roosevelt is a big Navy guy. He's a formal assistant secretary to the Navy. He loves him some Navy. But he's like, our boats, they're too small, and there are too few of them. So when he takes over as president, he really pushes that Mahan idea of you need to have more boats, big boats. Get the boats.
Get the boats out there.
Boats.
And so we build all these boats.
They're painted bright white.
Yes, because, America. And we, like the Great White Fleet, it's some as already existing boats, and then we build more boats. Like there's a wooden ship in the Great White Fleet. But they just drive around. They take a big old world tour for 2 years?
Yeah, all but 2 boats.
Right.
That's a made up number. Go on this tour around the world.
To just flex.
That's it.
It's just flexing on them.
Part of the reason that he's doing this, that TR is doing this, get out there with the boats and show everybody how big and powerful we are, is that he had just recently sort of made a compromise of sorts called the Gentleman's Agreement with Japan, which was basically that on the West Coast, American citizens were like, there's too many Japanese people here. We saw a similar kind of trend with the Chinese Exclusion Act. The Gentleman's Agreement, which to this day remains a little fuzzy on the outside of exactly what it is.
Right.
It was basically a handshake, but
It's not an executive order. It's not legislation. It's just a
an
conversation.
agreement.
Yeah.
And what was decided is that the Japanese would limit immigration to the United States by the Japanese, and Teddy Roosevelt agreed to end racism. Let that sink in.
Okay.
And so he's like, well, I'm going to look weak if I just like we gave up, like, okay, we'll stop being mean to Japan. And he respects Japan.
Yeah.
So he's like, Great White Fleet, let's stop in Tokyo.
Let's just make sure they know
That
we're not weak.
We're not. Look at my big boat.
Look at all these boats I got here. So that's that. We will use the fleet for things other than showing off. But not really.
Not much.
Those are all still showing off.
But this is really Mahan's kind of ideology about being a big, powerful nation and kind of coming to fruition. We are listening, Alfred, wherever you are.
Wherever you are out there. So iron-fisted neighbor, this is going to tie right back into our big stick policy where we'll be aggressive. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
We'll come for you. Where we are really going to have our special interest, especially under Roosevelt, is Latin America. And then continuing on with Taft and Wilson is Latin America. You can see that in the Panama Canal.
100%.
With the overthrowing it was Colombia, right?
It was
Colombian
Colombia,
powers. I don't know why I had a brain fart there. Also Venezuela.
Yeah, and Dominican Republic.
And the Dominican Republic.
So basically when foreign nations show up and they're like, hey, Venezuela, hey, DR, you guys owe us lots of money, so fork it over.
And we're like, no.
We're like, yeah, that's not how it works in our neighborhood.
Do you
over
remember?
here.
Do you remember way back in the 1800s when we talked about the Monroe Doctrine?
Go back in time.
The Monroe Doctrine, and that didn't do anything at the time. We're gonna slap a corollary on it, just a little like asterisk there, called the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, and that is where we get when he delivers that speech, the big stick quote.
True. So if you don't remember the Monroe Doctrine, shame.
Lest you forget the
shame be
Monroe
upon your
Doctrine.
house. But it basically told foreign nations, like, don't come on into our hemisphere. 'Cause
Or
we
else.
got it, or else. And then that or else was like, kind of like, oh, I hope no one actually does
no one
it.
tests us. This was the or else.
This is the
We're
or
gonna
else.
fight you.
Yeah, the Roosevelt Corollary. We will use American military, Great White Fleet, and we will show up with guns, and we will point them in your face, and we will ask you politely to please leave. We got this. And then we'll shoot you if you don't.
Right.
And in Venezuela and in the Dominican Republic, we use it. We actually show up. So,
Yeah. All right.
Platt Amendment is on here just as
about the
something with Cuba. We talked about it before that Cuba, we had no territorial ambitions, but there were limitations on their independence. This just is more that Roosevelt corollary.
It's only here because of the intervention piece. Like, Cuba's independent per the Platt Amendment, but the reason we have a military base is so we can intervene if necessary.
Dunzo.
Okay, Taft and Wilson, they've also got foreign policies. Well, they should. Everyone should have a foreign policy.
I mean, that is what the president's supposed to do.
Whoopsies. So Taft is dollar bills.
Yeah.
He will help foreign nations who support American business.
Period. Now, we have a couple of really good examples of that. We can see intervention in Nicaragua. We actually send military down there, and they're stationed there for like 30 years or some crazy number. But my favorite thing under Taft is the banana republics. And so we'll just really briefly discuss them. It's kind of like Panama and Hawaii combined all over again. Did you know that up until the early 1900s, America did not have bananas? Well, North America. Yeah, we didn't have bananas. And I'm not entirely convinced of why we didn't have bananas. I mean, it's not that far away to get bananas.
Right.
But I guess in large numbers, like you couldn't buy bananas like on a streetcar.
I see that.
But some American entrepreneurs went on a railroad ride through Mexico and down into Central America, into areas of Nicaragua, into, I can't think of, Honduras was a big one. And they started throwing banana seeds off the train, and all of a sudden, bananas popped up.
Wouldn't you know?
Yeah, and then we could take these bananas and we could ship them back to the United States in railroads, and we could make so much money. Like, you think bananas are cheap now? It's like 7 cents for 10 pounds of bananas, I feel like. It's not quite that cheap, but...
It's close, though.
It's
like
pretty
10 cents per 10 pounds.
Yeah, it's really...
A cent a pound.
So what's the whole point of this? Well, it's American entrepreneurs who are doing it. And then they're like, local governments, like the Honduran government, start saying like, hey, listen, Americans trying to make money off of our like resources here. Well, we didn't take too lightly to that. And so very a la Hawaii, what we did is we basically forced a bit of a coup in Honduras, allowing for a more pro-American business leadership to take over in Honduras. And basically we started making some bananas. And so like Chiquita Banana is actually sort of the offshoot of the original company, but it's really basically what we have now. So Banana Republic's not just an overpriced, I think, safari-themed store. Is that what Banana Republic is now? It used to be when I was younger. It used to be like everything was like
there is a lot of khaki,
of khaki and cargo pants. At one point.
At one point, cargo pants. Not so
yeah,
much
it's
anymore.
A weird name for a store because it's like, this is sort of about like enslavement of a native population in order to benefit American businesses. Well, maybe they're telling us something.
Well, sweatshops exist. My favorite, Taft, bleeds into Wilson, which is Mexico.
Oh, that's a great one. Can I stop you for 2 seconds?
Okay.
Because that's going to be a good transition into Wilson.
Okay.
But I just want to also mention when we talk about dollar diplomacy with Taft, it's specifically placing our military intervention in areas to secure economic benefit.
Yeah.
I think is a nice way to say it.
That's good.
Got it.
Now you go. First I want to say, you know how like fake banana candies taste, like Laffy Taffies and Runs, how they taste? Like, I read an article, I don't know why, I don't know where I found it, but it was like bananas before like Central American Caribbean bananas were a thing used to like actually taste like that. Or may have like actually
I know. Well,
like
in Puerto Rico, when we visited, they have a wealth of varying banana flavors, and it's like they're
bananas.
little, and they have one that tastes just like a grape. But it's a like that's a natural.
Would not like that. That would freak me out.
Well, right, but
you know what I do like though is cotton candy grapes.
Okay, that's artificial. These bananas just naturally taste like this.
I know.
Those are the worst. Go ahead, tell me about that.
Anywho, so Taft in Mexico and Wilson in Mexico. So Taft, he's dollar diplomacy. He's going to support governments that support American business. So down in Mexico, there was a Mexican government that didn't support American business.
It was a dictatorship for a very long time.
Well, he put the dictatorship in because of the
there was a military dictatorship for some time, and then that dictator Porfirio Diaz is taken out.
Yeah, I'm talking about Huerta.
Yeah, so then that comes next.
So he put Huerta in charge helped him get into power. Yeah, well, U.S. business interests.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Yep.
So that happened. Before Wilson, there's a pro-American business government, and it is a dictatorship.
Yes.
And then Wilson's diplomacy is moral diplomacy, which is to say democratic diplomacy. He supports foreign nations who would like to become democratic. We're going to see this come later. It's kind of a reason we get into, it is a reason that we get into World War I. And so he is going to reverse what the business interest did in Mexico and put someone else in charge in Mexico. Mexico back and forth.
Yeah, and throughout all of this, there is this guy named Pancho Villa.
Wilson supported Pancho Villa.
Wilson is like, let's get it, Pancho Villa. Because Pancho Villa did not like the leader at the time in Mexico. And so he and America were kind of like in cahoots a little bit. Like, hey, let's oust whoever's in power right now and get somebody we like better in there. Well, everything was okay until America started to kind of pull away a little bit because we were kind of good with things settling down in Mexico. And at which point, Pancho Villa and his troops, his gang, I don't know what they're called, but they're all on horseback and they have ponchos on. He was like, oh, America, you're not done here. And the best way to get America involved again is to go sneak into America and kill like 15 people. He actually does it on a train. He and his guys jump on a train, kill a bunch of Americans, and then go back to Mexico. And sure enough, we take the bait. General John Pershing. Blackjack Pershing is sent down into Mexico to look for Pancho Villa, who is never found.
A mysterious man.
Yes.
You know the first U.S. president to visit Mexico was Taft?
God.
Look at there.
Look at that, Taft. So that's our intervention
Wikipedia.
in Mexico. Yeah, but moral diplomacy, we just act. And here, it is important in terms of his idea of moral diplomacy because it's something that when we go into World War I, we have to keep up appearances. We got to stick with it.
We started this. We've got to. It can't just be Mexico. We've got to keep the world safe for democracy. Spoiler alert. We do.
Such a good one. All right.
Okay, next. Yeah. All right, here we go. Road to war. All right, so World War I's going to go pretty quick in this class because you've already learned this.
You learned it in world history.
Starting first with A Main. You learn A Main in world history.
I hate that.
I hate that. I just call it Maine.
Maine.
Get over it.
Get over it.
Friends
A Main?
I hate it. Yeah,
It
I
makes no
literally
sense.
just heard it through the wall.
Makes no sense to me.
Just heard it through the wall over there.
So, if we were being legitimate about this in terms of like America being in World War I, we wouldn't start this conversation until 1917.
Right, because that's when it matters.
Right. So this whole like the European background, review your notes, Google something. I mean, we'll see if Ms. Knowles wants to talk more about it, but honestly,
probably not.
I feel like we already got all this. A lot of competing alliances.
We'll spend
We're
like
not
an
involved.
A on something else. Yeah, we're not in the alliances.
Nah, because you know what we're going to do? Declare neutrality. And in
like,
declaring neutrality, we're like, give us all your money because we're the only ones who can trade.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's all tied up with, U-boats, watching them over.
Yeah, we don't care about those wolf packs.
We're out of here.
Yeah, just here's your cereal.
But the alliances are going to be what pulls us in eventually. That's why we are going to mention that out of literally any other thing. It's our relationship with Great Britain and France.
Yeah.
That's what does it. Should we continue?
Yeah, let's go.
That's it for his
Hey!
Look at that Woodrow. All right.
So we declare neutrality,
As we already said.
which we've done so many times before. Can you name one more time?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, George Washington. He's like, see ya.
Yeah.
We're going to stay right here.
Yeah. So Georgie, he's still here. He's still telling us, like, he's whispering in our ear, declare neutrality.
His portrait that Dolly Madison saved is like speaking to Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah. And he's like, all right, I guess we're neutral then. Now,
You're okay, George.
we are going to benefit a ton because,
Right.
again, we'll trade with whoever.
We'll
It
trade with
doesn't really
anybody.
matter. The problem is that our boats, 1915,
Yikes.
we have a cargo boat. Is it a British cargo ship?
It is a British.
Yeah. And it's a cargo ship, but it has American travelers on it because, people want to go tour Europe
Right.
during a war. Like, come on.
I fancy a
Oh.
vacation in
So-
a war-torn land.
And the Lusitania, this British cruise liner, is torpedoed by
A U-boat.
Unterseeboot. It's a U-boat. It's
An undersea boat.
That's in German. It's Unterseeboot.
I love that.
Thank you.
I always am like, yeah, it starts with the U. Keep it moving.
Unterseeboot. And it sinks, and a bunch of people are killed, and America's like, whoa!
How dare you?
Yeah.
But we still don't get in.
We're not going to go to war. I mean,
It's like just one boat.
it's like 127 Americans. But, I mean, you chose to go on a cruise
Right.
during the war.
We never came out and was like, hey, don't go to Europe because it's war torn. We learned our lesson. We do that in World War II. We're like, hey, by the way, don't travel here. There's Unterseeboots afloat.
Well,
Not
underwater.
Underwater.
Okay.
Swimming around.
Now, we do, and even after Lusitania, we're like, whoa, Germany, you gotta tell people before you bomb them.
We're like, okay.
And Germany's like, yep, we'll do that next time. And guess what? There is a next time.
Yeah.
There's 2 more next times, in fact.
There's plenty.
There's the Arabic and
The Sussex.
the Sussex, that's it.
Love the Sussex.
And they just keep doing it.
Yeah.
They're like,
Hey, by the way,
hey, we're gonna bomb your boat. Okay, bomb it. Like, it's Germany. It's too much. Now, side note, William Jennings Bryan, flashback, is Secretary of State during this period under Wilson. And Wilson's like, listen, WJB, you pacifist. You're going to write a strongly worded letter to Germany, and you're going to tell them that they stop it or else. And WJB's like, but I don't like war. I'm not going to do that. And he steps down. WJB.
I didn't know he stepped
He
down in the
did.
middle of a term.
He
I thought he
does.
just like wasn't it
He
again. in the
steps
second
down,
term.
and Robert Lansing takes his place. And Robert Lansing's like, "I'll write a letter." You couldn't see it, but she
I got my quill ready.
she got her quill and started writing. So, so that's what happens to WJB. But on the other
Don't
side,
ever forget William Jennings Bryan. He's still not going to be gone, by the way.
coming back.
We're talking about him
He's
still.
still around in the 1920s. We got one more time.
We got
with
one
him.
more time.
But at this point, Wilson is like, listen, don't tell all Americans that we're going to try, like, we're like bucking up to these people. Instead, let's do something else in America. Let's call it preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's that.
So fine, I'm just talking so much. I'm sorry, kids. So preparedness basically is like, guys, we don't want to go to war, America, because we're dealing with all of our own problems because we're progressives. However,
we should.
we want you to know that if we had to go to war, we're going to be ready for that. Mm-hmm. And there's a few different things that they do. They enlarge the size of the military, but in particular, they expand the number of jobs within the military, well as within training camps.
A little piece of mobilization.
Yeah, it's like kind of a little sprinkling. It's a little salt bay.
We're getting a little salt bay
Yeah.
mobilization.
Mobilization. You'll never forget it now.
Not wrong.
And it does give a lot more money too.
Oh yeah. We're going to dedicate a lot more.
I'll talk to you more about that in class. I like that sort of stuff.
Okay. Guns versus butter. We talk about that in economics.
Guns versus butter?
Yeah. Butter is like consumer, like Medicare and Medicaid, like for the individual, and guns is military. Yeah, there you go. So 1916 election comes, and we have successfully stayed out of this conflict in Europe, and Wilson runs on the slogan that's like, he kept us out of war. Mm-hmm. We have taken all the steps, thanks to Wilson, to not be involved in World War I. You're the best. Re-elect. Mm-hmm. Inauguration in 1917. And then we enter
war in 1917.
So we get, if we're going to go to war, it's going to be to spread democracy.
Right.
So,
but we also have a lot of similar things happening like we saw with previous wars. Like, we need something that gets the people involved.
Yeah.
And we need someone to write a nasty letter.
Yes, a la Spanish-American War.
Yeah, and so that's what we start to see. So idealistically, we're going to fight for democracy. Mm-hmm. But in reality,
we're fighting to... No one can talk to America
nobody
like that.
Nobody can talk to us like that.
Don't talk to me like that.
And that is the Zimmerman telegram.
Yes. A letter from... No, it wasn't from the...
It was a German chancellor to Mexico.
Yeah, it was the chancellor to Mexico. See, I'm getting it confused with Spanish-American War. So many letters afoot.
So many letters!
Yes, it was to Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Arthur Zimmerman wrote it.
Mm-hmm. The chancellor to Mexico, and they're like, hey, if you help us... Do you remember all that land you lost?
Yeah.
Way back in the day? Mm-hmm. And Mexico was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Texas and California.
But before anything could happen, we intercepted it.
Yeah, so it's a telegram, and it's written in code, and it says just that. It says, hey, listen, we don't want to necessarily have America get involved, but if they do... Mm-hmm. We need you and Japan to start conflicts with them, because what we want is for America to be spread so thin they can't really fight.
Yeah.
And we will give you back all of your
Mexican cession land.
We'll let you reclaim your territory. Mm-hmm. Doesn't that sound good, Mexico?
We'll let you reclaim it. Like, you're gonna have to fight me first.
Right. And it was intercepted, and it was intercepted by the British, and then it was released, and some say that it was actually pure propaganda. It wasn't even real, but
it was sent through Western Union.
Yeah, I mean, who sends a letter through Western Union that's about like that kind of stuff?
Right.
That's big.
There's some conversation as to like, this was the hoax, and we were trying to get it in. I mean, I don't know if it's a lot of conversation, but we were trying to get...
It's all fun stuff.
We were just trying to like build a case for war, and so we're like, oh, look, it's in code. Oh, we intercepted it, and we translated it so
and all
easily.
the Americans got mad, as we should.
Just like the Dillon letter.
Just like it. All right.
Okay.
Are we in war yet? I don't feel like we're in war quite yet.
I don't think we're there yet.
Oh, there
we're getting there. So back on the democracy piece, we were like not going to get involved in war unless it was going to be to spread democracy, create the new progressive world order, not material gains, because people in Europe were fighting for material gains, imperialism.
Yes.
You learned that already in world history, so we're not going to go into it. But we see a stalemate of sorts happen. We have all this new technology, which I think, oh yeah, we're going to talk about down there. And it's making the war move super, super fast. But then all of a sudden, it's just like everyone's just in trenches. And it's not like really moving. We've reached a point where like Germany's not imperializing, Russia's not doing anything, like all this stuff. And so we're like, we see that. And then we see the Russian Revolution happen, the Bolshevik Revolution happen, the Red Revolution.
It's one of my favorites. I
like
love it.
I like talking about it, even though it's not a part of the content. But we're like, okay, here's this country that overthrew a monarchy. They're probably gonna like give power to the people, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. So let's just let's use that as kind of our parlay that into entrance into the war.
Yeah, and also Vladimir Lenin pulled a fast one on us. So my favorite thing, he removes Russia from the war through the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which you don't need at all.
No.
But in this, he's like, okay, we're leaving the war because this isn't, we're trying to fix Russia. We need a moment because we got to do our thing here. Oh, also, America, if your war effort is going to be all about democracy, then why don't you look at these documents that we've saved from Britain and France talking about territorial expansion? Make that make sense, Wilson. And Wilson, again, was like, what? Our friends are lying to us?
These guys are my friends.
And basically, we had a moment where it's like, well, dang it, if we're going to be here for this idea of morality and spreading democracy, this is problematic, everybody.
We should stop this.
Lenin. Gosh.
Lenin.
Right.
I always forget about Lenin because we don't talk about him. We do Russian Revolution and then we just go straight to Stalin.
I mean, we're not communist here in America, Miss Knowles, so we don't talk about him
true.
that much. But Lenin's an interesting guy.
He's an interesting guy.
He's very interesting, and his body is still preserved with a special secret sauce in
That's
the Red Square.
super gross. All right. So anyway, we're gonna get into the war. All of the people that we send over to fight in the war for the United States, post-Russian Revolution, we're getting into the war. We're going to call that the American Expeditionary Force, AEF.
The AEF.
It's just everybody that's going to fight over.
Yeah.
We're going to draft a bunch of people. That's the Selective Service Act. We've talked about the draft. African American soldiers, they're not a part of the draft. They do volunteer.
And they are segregated.
And they're in segregated units, and they rarely see any fighting.
Unless they go to the French side. The French will take them and put them on the front lines. And
Yes.
we see some of those troops win some of the highest military honors in France.
In France. Not in America, though.
We're behind the times.
We are behind the times. And then new technologies, like I was talking about, we've got tanks are new, using battleships is new, using airplanes. What's that called when they...
Reconnaissance.
Reconnaissance, but what's it called when the airplanes fight each other? That's called something.
Like a dogfight or something?
Dogfight, yeah.
Are they doing that? I thought airplanes weren't
Was
really...
that World War II?
Until World War II, yeah. I mean, we have... I want to
We're
just
using
clarify that.
airplanes.
We have airplanes in World War I. They're just used mainly for reconnaissance and
okay.
transport. It's not until really World War II that we see them.
The dogfights.
We see the dogfights that happen.
All right. We do have mustard gas.
Mustard gas. That stuff will burn your face
That's
off.
to get people out of the trenches.
And you...
That's not for that,
And
but
if you stay in the trenches too long, you're going to get trench rot.
Yeah. Gangrene. We're going to rot your feet off.
It's so bad.
It's so gross. The trenches were not fun times.
As really bad as all this is, and keep in mind the United States loses just like over 100,000 people. I think it's even less than that, to be honest with you. I'm sure it's lower than that, actually. What really kills us all is the Spanish flu.
Yes, that's what the big deal is. That's going to be a part of when we come back. Like, we're still reeling from this Spanish influenza that these soldiers have brought over. I mean, and that's going to kill a lot of people.
Millions of people.
Yeah.
And the problem with the Spanish flu, which by the way is called the Spanish flu because Spain was neutral during this period, and so it's the only European paper that we were receiving in the United States, and so we knew
like, the
about
flu's
it
happening
from the Spanish. But the problem with the Spanish flu was that it wasn't killing what was kind of the typical target of the flu, which is the very young and the very old. It was killing teenagers and young
soldiers.
adults.
Yeah. Healthy-ish people. I mean, they've got gangrene, but
you can come back from that.
You can come back from it. Just
but this flu, I mean, we're talking millions upon millions of people. It's so really
between
intense.
the high casualty rate of the war, which, I mean,
for European
it was very high, And the Spanish influenza, we're going to lose millions of people.
You know, I have a family photo of some of my family members from World War One that were in France, and there was like 3 of them from the family, and they all died of the flu in France.
Oh my gosh.
During the war. I know, very sad.
That's going to be one of the things that is going to anger the lost generation, which you're talking about in Johnson and Feezer and Rapp's class. You're welcome for moving right along with that. Okay, next.